Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Hi, we are back. We are back. It's so good to see everyone. And welcome to the Pivot Poll. My name is Heather, of course. And hey, Andretta.
Hey, how are you? How's everybody?
Good to see you. Good to see you. So, we are back. It is a new year. We hope that everyone has had a great January and February. Is starting out with a bang. So, today we are going to talk about Black History Month. It's very important. It's February, and we celebrate Black History Month here in America during the month of February. So we just wanted to have a little chat about Black History Month and what it means to each of us, and just talk about some of the accomplishments of African Americans throughout the uh, the years throughout this country, and get into some interesting conversations about the topic of Black history. So, Andretta, how have you been?
Oh, I've been good. We've been hanging and taking a little bit of a break for the holidays and, just enjoyed family and stuff like that. And so I needed the break. But of course, we're glad to be back and glad to kick things back off again. So, yeah, that's where we
Yeah,
are.
definitely, definitely. So, Andretta and I were talking about this topic before we started the show, and just wanted to, we started throwing around the thought about, well, what does Black History Month mean, and what does it mean
Mhm.
to us personally? So, I'll go first. Black History Month to me means a lot. It encompasses a lot for me. I think it means that we get a chance to pay homage to our to African Americans who paid the price for Andretta and I and all of us to be able to have the freedoms that we have. And Black History Month also means to
Mhm.
me that it gives me a time to be proud of my heritage and proud to say that I too am a part of Black history, and
Yeah.
it's really key and important for me to understand that in today's society. Sometimes it gets lost. So that's what Black History Month means to me. Andretta, what does Black History Month mean to you?
This has been an interesting uh, time for us as we have talked about this. And to be honest, and this is the pivot poll, and like I said, I'm probably as honest as I will ever be about things. I have not really given that much um, to Black History Month.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is I understand, the reasons we celebrate it. I understand the reasons why we need it. But I haven't put much emphasis on that. And so as Heather brought this up, my first kind of thing was like, well, what does it mean to me? Because I really haven't given it the attention that I think it probably deserves. And in preparing, and just talking and chatting about it for the show, I realized that I haven't. But I do understand, probably what it should mean to me and really exploring that, in my own life and space and going forward and trying to figure out, you know, where to what place to put it in, what importance to put it on it. And that may sound strange as an African American woman,
Oh,
but I'm just telling the truth. I really have not given it that attention that I should have, or even should give it, and I want to do better with that. But so it's hard for me to answer that question to say what does it mean. I think it's important, but to answer authentically, I probably haven't given it the attention I should have, or need to, or yeah.
I understand that, and we were talking about that earlier about um,
Mhm.
what is it. It means different things to different people.
Right,
Actually, so I don't think there's a right or wrong. It
right.
just means different things to different people. I know when I was growing up. uh, finding out about Black history. It was
Mhm.
prevalent in my home. I
Mhm.
can remember, oddly enough, I can remember pictures of me. I can remember being dressed in dashikis.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
at a young age. My dad was from Philadelphia,
Mhm.
and he grew up in that era where that was, that was a thing, that was a popular thing.
Mhm.
Had a big afro and all of those things as a little, very, very little girl.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I can remember um, having pictures up on the wall of African Americans
Oh, wow.
outside of MLK, and the things that I saw in school.
Right.
And then I was around the people, the people that I was around. It was common for
Yeah.
us to learn about Black history, and uh,
Mhm.
outside of what we learned in our school setting. And then, my mother went to an HBCU, so
Mhm.
I kind of grew
Mhm.
up with this
Yeah.
understanding of Black history. And then
Yeah.
set aside from that, the Rosewood history, which is a part of Black history, it wasn't something that we could speak about at the time when
Mhm.
I was growing up, but we knew about we definitely,
Absolutely.
yeah, we definitely knew about it. And
Yeah.
then um, I I went to predominantly white middle schools and high schools, but
Mhm.
even within that, our schools made room for us to learn about Black history. And then going to college is definitely when
Mhm.
it all kicked in, I guess some would
Yes.
say, or it all started to make sense to me, and learning about, uh, actually learning about the history of of Black people. I went
Mhm.
to school. The school I went to was a plantation.
Oh, wow.
That
Yeah,
was
that's right.
its
Absolutely.
original intent. Yeah. So there was history all around us, and all of our professors took the time to make sure that we understood. Um,
Yeah.
shout out
Yeah.
shout out to Tougaloo College in Tougaloo, Mississippi. But so I've always grown up around Black history and being
Yeah.
appreciative of Black history, and but it's kind of interesting because I think I started thinking about it as we were talking, thinking about this topic. As much as I had around my house growing up, pictures and
Mhm.
artifacts and things of that nature, I have
Mhm.
nothing in my home that represents that now.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because I think this kind of goes back to a previous conversation that you and I had on this show, even, and that's about experiences growing up. And see, I'm listening to you right now, thinking that was not my experience. Once again, we're talking about this experience thing because I don't ever recall anybody mentioning Black history, except, I mean, in school, of course, we
Yes.
every month talked about Black history. I mean, every Black History Month, we talked about Black history. We
Mhm.
didn't really talk about it outside of that. Um, Growing up, I did not see any pictures of any kind like that in anybody's home that I was associated with. And if
Yeah.
they chime in, they can tell me, but I don't recall seeing that. Um, the only experience that I had as a teenager with Black history was when the students of my school got together and signed a petition because we wanted a Black history, African American studies course. We didn't
Wow.
have one, and there was one teacher who said he would. So I did
Hmm.
get into that class. That was probably the closest that I had come and have come
Yeah.
uh, to active education as it relates to Black history.
Hmm.
Nobody went to an HBCU that I know of. Well, I'm thinking one person did, but I would have to think about that. I think one person did, but I would have to see if that school was an HBCU. But
Hmm.
other than that, I don't know anybody else that did.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and so this is why you probably have this. profound view of what Black History Month means and the importance is because the education, the exposure
Yeah.
was there for you, but it certainly was not there for me.
Yeah.
Black history education was basically Black people were slaves. They came over here in a ship. You know, we were in slavery for 400 years, and then it was civil rights, Martin Luther King. You know, I
Oh,
mean, and you know, until recently when we went to was it
Washington,
Washington
D.C.
to
Yes.
see the where did we go? The
We went to the African American Museum.
right, the African American Museum was phenomenal. I mean, it does really bring you face to face with if you haven't had that education, if you haven't had that experience. I would
Yes.
say if anybody is listening, replay or however, if you have not gone, it was well worth it for me.
Hmm.
Um, but doing more of that is probably good. But I just didn't have that experience, which is probably why when you brought this up, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
Um, but it makes sense because you're speaking of a lineage,
Yeah.
especially with your family Rosewood. I mean, I don't know if people know that about you.
Don't.
I don't know if our viewers know. I think you should speak to that. But yeah, so I think you just have this history of kind of this lineage of Black history and teaching and education and experience that maybe everybody doesn't have. So
Yes, that's true. And I do know that, 'cause I know our very first or second show was about growing up. How did you grow up
yeah,
versus how did I
yeah,
grow up? And
yeah.
there were some differences. And yeah, I am I think a third generation. I think it's third generation Rosewood descendant.
And
So
fourth, you know,
that gets third
is
and
the
fourth. Yeah.
sin.
See,
Yes,
Rosewood descendant. So my
I
grandmother was.
remember, and I said that because I remember your mother's. I remember your mother about.
Yes. So
I think we got some difficulties, Heather. I think you're frozen on
oh,
my end.
okay, is that better? Maybe. I'll keep talking and hopefully it'll catch up.
Yeah,
My
keep going.
grand
There you go. There
okay,
you go.
my grandmother was born in Rosewood. So Rosewood, Florida was a black settlement. It was a town right about 45 miles east. I think it's east. I don't know directions that well, east of Gainesville, Florida. And it was a town
Yeah.
full of African Americans. They ran their own town. My great grandfather was ran the turpentine still. So there were seven or eight, I should know this number, families that lived in Rosewood. And January
Yeah.
1st, um, a white woman accused a black man of assaulting her, and it was found that it was not true. And for 7 days, they pillaged and killed and ran amok in Rosewood and burned the city down, burned the town down. My grandmother, fortunately, was not there the time of the massacre. She had moved to Gainesville with her aunt, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my relatives passed away in
Mm-hmm.
that massacre. And I can remember growing up hearing about Rosewood, but my grandmother, because there were some people who were still alive then that had committed the actual crime. So it was a hush hush thing in our family for many, many years, many years,
Yeah.
to the point that some of our elders were very afraid for their lives. And uh, finally, my mother was one of the spearheaders of the Rosewood Foundation, the original one,
Mm-hmm.
and a few
Mm-hmm.
other family members. And we were able to take the case to the state of Florida and won.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
so through all of that, and through that Black history, that moment of moments of Black history, made helped me understand that Black history is bigger than just what I see sometimes. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely is expansive. This is a very expansive topic,
Right, right.
to the point that we experience Black history, that or the accomplishments of of of, of individuals every single day, and I don't think
Yeah.
we know about it.
Right. And Heather, before you move on, I want to say, because you didn't say it this way, for those of you who are viewing and you do not know the story of Rosewood, because some people may not know
That's
that
true.
they made that story into a movie. So we haven't
Mhm.
connected that. Heather's family story was made into a major motion picture.
Yeah.
I saw it, watched it, didn't know it was Heather. Was singing with Heather and everything, and did not know that was her until we became close friends. So if you do not, this is a piece of Black history,
Yes.
that you can say, hey, I know somebody that was a part of that family. Go check out the movie Rosewood if you have not seen it. It is a very, very, very impactful movie. I probably will go back and watch it this month just because I'm saying that.
Mhm.
Powerful movie of survival and just all that happened to their family, and how those who survived, how they survived, how
Mhm.
they escaped. Just everything about it is rich history. So if
Yeah.
you haven't seen the movie, go rent it, go buy it, do whatever you got to do to check that story out, because it is an absolutely phenomenal demonstration of the ability that people have to survive even the worst of circumstances, and what they had to do for those who did make it out, because many did not,
Yeah.
what they had to do to make it out and what they had to do to survive. There are major actors in this show. It was
Mhm.
not a small movie. And so I want to encourage you. I just didn't want to get past that, because we're talking about Black history. Your family and lineage is a big part of that story, and so I just wanted to make sure that people connected those two together. That this is
Yeah.
just not some random story that you're telling. That everybody recognized that story, and it was so the depth of it was so great that they made it into a movie. So
Yeah.
you can continue to throw that out
Yeah.
there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So, and with that, like I was saying, my great great grandfather, I think it was my great great grandfather. Now that I say that, owned a turpentine still. So
Mhm.
they created businesses for themselves within that community, and
Yeah,
they established themselves in a way that they invented things. They were able to make an impact in that area. And I think
absolutely.
sometimes we forget sometimes
Yeah,
about some of the things that we enjoy today,
yeah.
that they were at the hands of an African American inventor. So I
Hmm.
looked up some information. I there's some of these people I knew about, but then
Okay.
there were some of them I did not know about. I was like, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
uh, the first up, we should thank George Crumb
Uh-huh.
for unintentionally creating the potato chip
Oh, okay.
during the
Wow.
summer of 1853.
Hmm.
He accidentally came upon making the potato chip, which was kind of interesting. So, for those of you who love Lay's, Mr. Crumb was very instrumental in that.
Yeah, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry right
Yes,
now.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Frederick Jones, we should thank, because he left his mark with the development of the refrigeration equipment.
Oh,
So
wow.
all those refrigerated trucks, those people who have food trucks and all of those things, he started that. He
Okay.
was the
Well,
person who developed that equipment for it.
okay.
Then I found out that Granville T. Woods, and I had heard about him when I was at school in Tougaloo, but I
Hmm.
didn't remember that he was notable for the induction of the telegraph system.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, hey, Stephen, Tougaloo friend, he was, so the telegraph system, it allowed traveling trains to communicate with one another.
Mm-hmm.
So that is really that was really interesting to me because I don't remember the last time I was on a train,
Mm-hmm.
but I do know that they communicate with each other. So he had his one of the patents for that, which was
Okay.
very interesting. And then everyone knows about George Washington Carver and his
Mm-hmm.
contributions to America with the peanut butter, with
Mm-hmm.
the peanut, actually. And but what I didn't know is that he conducted experiments in 1896 and created 518 new products from peanut crops.
Mm-hmm.
They included ink, dye, soap, cosmetics, flour, vinegar, and synthetic rubber. So
Okay.
that part I did not know about. And then Madam C.J. Walker was the
Mm-hmm.
first African American woman, self-made millionaire, after creating her line of black hair care products.
Mm-hmm.
Then I remember hearing about this gentleman, Garrett Morgan. So we every time we get to a traffic stoplight, we have to thank Mr. Morgan. He
Mm-hmm.
patented that in 1922.
Okay.
And yeah, it was the first to offer a third caution signal, which is now
Oh, wow.
known as the yellow light.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Awesome.
Yes, and he also patented patent the gas mask, the first gas mask, which
Okay.
is
Okay.
very interesting. Um, Alexander Miles uh, was born in 1838, and he contributed by saving lives by designing the elevator doors.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is that his daughter almost fell through, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as a result, he figured out how to get this function going so that it would be an automatic close.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just a few, you know,
Right.
go on and on and on about inventors that made an impact on the things that we enjoy and the things that we utilize even today. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a good part of
Right.
our of Black history. It's a very,
Right.
very
Absolutely.
history. So when we think of Black history, um, in today's time, in today's society, do you think that it's still important to talk about Black history?
I do. I do think it is important, although I didn't have the type of history, maybe that exposure or history, being educated on it. I do think it's important, and I think it's important for a myriad of reasons. As people, Black people as people, I think it's important that we understand what contribution African Americans have had
Mhm.
in society, on the world that we live in, by clearly, even a lot of the examples that you gave, we've made an impact. And I think awareness for those people who even are like me, for young people that are growing up, to be reminded, to know where we've been, know where we are, know where we need to go. I think we've got to look at that. And I think discussing it in the terms of more, and this is me, more than, because this is the only teaching I received, more than this boxed educational experience that says, you know, Black people, Africa, slavery, you know, civil
Mhm.
rights, and then there's more to our history than just that.
Right.
And I think it's important that we understand the richness, the depth, the dimensions, that Black people have, um, in general, in every area. And so I think the more that we talk about that, I think it helps to give us a sense of identity, that maybe we don't have without that, a greater sense, because we can have an identity, but a greater sense of identity as it relates to who we are,
Mhm.
our abilities, because maybe everybody doesn't see that way.
Yeah.
And maybe if you've been in an experience where you haven't understood the richness of who you are, then hearing who we have been, what we've done, what we've contributed, where we've come from, how we've overcome, I think that can really help um, to really bring an impact on not just Black people, but all people. That's
Yes.
just my perspective on that.
Yes, I agree with you. I think that I think it's still valid. I
Yeah.
think that um, it's important to share the contributions of African Americans. I think it's important to share the struggles of African Americans. I
Absolutely.
think it's important for us to continue to connect the dots.
Yeah.
'Cause, like you said, you're. I don't think you're an anomaly. I
Yeah.
don't think that you are the only one in this, who grew up with, like you said, with
Hmm.
this. We
Hmm.
were in Africa. And now we're here.
Right.
You're not the only one who experienced that,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
believe that there are still um, people today, young people, who that's the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is the
Absolutely.
narrative. So
Right.
it's and we can't rely necessarily on the education system
Right.
to teach the totality
Yeah,
of,
absolutely.
of Black history.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
part
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
they can teach. So
Absolutely.
because of that, I do believe that it is still valid for us to talk about Black history, not just in February when
Right.
we get a chance to, you know, talk about all the good stuff. But
Right.
I think,
What do you think? What do you think about the people who feel like? And I think we touched on this afternoon as we were kind of chatting during lunch. Um, People that feel like Black history, we don't need Black history, we need American history, and that because let's face it, there are some people who feel like who do not agree, who are African American, who feel like why Black history? Black history is a part of American history, and it should just be a part of American history. Do you
yes,
have any thoughts about that?
I do. I think that if all were, as the song goes, if all were fair in love and war, um,
Mhm,
then we would not need. It might not be a need for
mhm, mhm,
African American history, Black history, and Latina history, and Pan Asian history, and all the histories that we have here in
mhm,
the country. But I just think that because all is not fair and all is
mhm,
not equal, and that's just the truth, all is not
mhm,
equal, that uh, we have to spotlight, Black history.
mhm, mhm,
Um, so I understand what they're speaking on,
mhm.
uh, but I don't agree. I don't necessarily agree with
Agree
the
with
fact.
that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can understand the perspective of both of those. But I do think it's important that we spend time, not like you said, not just in February as much as possible, but we do need to have that time when we are able to celebrate that piece and highlight it. And not to say that's where it should end.
Right.
And you made a key about, not depending upon a system of any kind to train our children. And I haven't done a great job because I didn't have it. I didn't have the experience of that. But being proactive about, because when we went to Washington D.C. and went to the museum, the first thing I said, "Oh my God, I need to bring the kids here."
Yeah.
That's because all of this rich history in one place, floor after floor after floor of history of Black people and where they've come from, their contributions, what they've done. all the way from sacred culture to hip hop culture to, it was fascinating. It
Mhm.
was really, really fascinating. And I think we were running that day because we couldn't
Yeah,
spend a lot because I think we had to be back on the
we had
road.
to be back on the road. Yeah.
We were, but we were still, and I would like to go back and just kind of rest a little bit and take my time. But even for that even though we were kind of picking up the pace, it was still wonderful to absorb and to see all of it just displayed in this one place. So I think
Yes.
we do have to do our part. Complaining, about anything when you have the power to make your own change in your own sphere of influence,
Mhm.
I think is what's key. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And so, what are your thoughts? Okay, I I can say this.
Hmm.
I when I graduated from high school, okay, my mother went to HBCU, so
Hmm.
but when I graduated from high school, I went to an all-girl, predominantly white institution. Went to
Hmm.
school there for a year, and then I transferred and
Hmm.
went to Tougaloo, which is an all-black
Hmm.
institution,
Hmm.
and they gave me the opportunity to remember my history,
Okay.
um, to re-engage with my history,
Hmm. Hmm.
to learn more about my history.
Yeah.
And my experiences at Tougaloo are great. If I
Mhm.
had to do it all over again, I would how I did it, because the HBCU experience, it was an experience. It
Yeah.
was definitely an experience. And HBCUs, they were founded because African
Mhm.
Americans were unable to get the quality education at other institutions of at that time.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about the thought of HBCUs still existing? And there are some thoughts out there that say that HBCUs are no longer relevant. How do you feel what's your thoughts on that?
I don't agree with that. I think it's relevant for those who it's relevant for, and I think it's relevant. It may be relevant for you, and you don't even know it. And the reason why I say that is this conversation has caused me to just. I was digging a little bit, and first of all, just on a surface level, I think it's absolutely relevant for the reasons that you have stated. It's a different type of an experience that connects a person with the foundations of who they are as a person. I don't think you get that anywhere most of the time, unless you're going to an institution that is based on, a religious affiliation, Christian or otherwise. Then that part of who you are may be massaged and fed and developed. But where else can you go where they are feeding a part of your history every day?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I wasn't there. I didn't go to an HBCU, but say if I'm over exaggerating by saying every day,
No, you're not.
where else can you go, public or private institution that is not a religious based institution,
Mhm.
where you can be fed, developed, cultivated based upon who you are?
Right.
Where else can you do that? I don't know.
I
And
don't know of any other
those of
place.
you who know, chime in. I don't know. So for that reason, I think it is absolutely relevant. I was also, and I kind of copied and pasted too, and I didn't tell you this fact, but um, it said the nation has 106 HBCUs, and they make up just 3% of America's colleges and universities. Yet they produced almost 20% of all African American graduates and 25% of African American graduates in the STEM fields of science,
Yep.
technology, engineering, and mathematics.
I believe that.
So for me, when I read that, that's where I was alluding to when I said it may be relevant to those who think it's not relevant,
Right.
because those scientists, those mathematicians, engineers that
Yes.
go into mainstream society to obtain in the workplace, business that
Mhm.
affect what we do every day
Yep.
are birthed predominantly in those places, or I shouldn't say predominantly, but as an African American group, that's a big population of people
It
coming
is.
out of what only makes up 3%
Mhm.
of colleges and universities. So if you pick up that ratio, you'll
Yeah.
begin to see a large amount of African Americans in those fields come out of HBCUs.
Yeah, it's true.
So for me, the relevance is clear just on the foundational level of connecting with um, professors that look like you. And not to
Yeah.
say all of them do, but professors that look like you,
Mhm.
providing an image that maybe someone didn't have of, those who have been accomplished, who have, gotten to a level of success in their careers, and then being poured into not just academically, but about your character, who you are, your future, your history, etc.
Yeah.
That to me is relevance alone, but more than that, what it produces in that particular area where we need it a lot in society. So that's my take on it. I say it's absolutely relevant.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I mean, you're right. I think that HBCUs will always have a place.
Right.
There will always be a need for students to be able, African American students to be able to see their own, experience their own,
Absolutely.
learn from their own,
Absolutely.
um, so that they can then share their knowledge with the world,
Right.
like that statistic just stated. So
Yeah, and not only that too, as I was kind of digging into it, it was talking about how HBCUs are 30% less in tuition costs as it
mm,
relates to other places. Now, I haven't checked on these statistics, but it's just something that I saw. So, for that individual who may not have the financing to go to colleges or feels excluded because of the money, for those, because I'm not saying all HBCUs fall into that category, but as a whole, it was saying that they're 30%
mhm.
less. So if any one of those HBCUs can provide a more affordable opportunity for a population of people, that becomes worthy as well.
Yeah,
So, you know, I definitely understand people's point because they feel like, well, we're not in a time where people are being rejected because of the color of their skin. So why would you need to create an institution for that? What
right,
it has evolved into more than just an institution of higher learning for people who are rejected elsewhere.
correct.
We got past that a long time ago.
Long time.
We're on something new now. we're on
Right.
we're because that may have been the foundation, but over time and with that experience, and I'm sure if you think about it and you look at an institution being built for individuals who would have been otherwise rejected, inherent in that is them teaching, would be that institution HBCU teaching about the pride of who you are, and
Yes.
that now becomes a great deal of what people are looking for when they go to an HBCU. So for
Yeah.
me, I think it makes sense.
Yes. I remember my freshman year at Tougaloo, we had a class, Miss Flag. She is no longer with us, but she taught us. It was basically like being proud of yourself 101. uh,
Right.
who
Mhm.
you are, where you come from, your
Right.
lineage. She taught us about Tougaloo's history.
Right.
Some of those buildings on Tougaloo's campus are protected
Mhm.
because of what
Right.
they were at that time and what they stood for. So,
Yeah. And that's affirmation is what you're talking about. Is she affirmed you. She
yes,
affirmed who you were and that you were okay in the skin that you're in a society that may not everybody may not feel that way. And so
correct.
you take the time to get the affirmation that you may not have received before. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, Yeah, exactly. So I think we're on the same page with this one. You say
Absolutely.
yeah, HBCUs are definitely it's definitely a near and dear to my heart, but
Absolutely.
it is definitely still needed in today's
Mm,
society. So, I think the topic of Black History Month is one that throughout we've had some interesting years. uh Past 4 or 5 years have been really interesting here in America, the racially. And I think that Black History Month serves uh, a place in this time and space to help us just stop and pause
right.
for a moment and be grateful
Yeah.
first. Great, as a fourth generation Rosewood descendant, I am
Thank you.
grateful. Third and fourth. She
And the
remembers.
reason why I'm saying this because I remember her mother's speech, and so
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
what it is.
So,
I love that speech to this day. It just rests on my life. Okay,
so,
we are third and fourth generation Rosewood descendants. Yes, come now.
so that's hilarious. So I'm grateful for my lineage.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful that I am attached to
Yeah.
such a rich and diverse
Hmm.
background and ancestry.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me when I was also thinking about this. Your experiences on my grandfather's side of the family, they researched all the way back to where we came from Africa.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that side of my family is really into where it was when I was growing up, was really into the African culture and understanding, making sure we knew as young adults
Hmm.
where we came from.
Okay.
And for them, the older generation, it was very important uh, for them to let us know that, to instill in us, no matter what people say, what you encounter, that you
Right.
come from good stock, as an aunt of mine used to tell me when I was younger. And those are the stories that I know all of us have one way or another,
Mhm,
regardless if you had a picture of the kings and queens of Africa on your
mhm.
on your wall as a young person, or if your grandmother just pulled you aside and said, you know what, no, it doesn't matter what anybody says, you are this, you
Yeah,
are that.
absolutely.
So it doesn't, it's all the same.
Right,
It's all the same. It's all affirming who you are, uh,
right,
and affirming where you came from,
right,
and helping you see a vision for yourself.
right.
Sometimes our society clouds,
Mm,
and I think Black history gives us an opportunity to part the clouds just for 28 days, so that
mhm.
we can see, remember where we came from, remember the accomplishments, remember the struggles, and see where we're going.
Yeah, and I think, and I want to add this too. I don't think it just parts those clouds for us as African American people, Black people. It should part those clouds for people,
Mhm.
and I think that's key because a lot of times, if a person says, "Oh, that's Black History Month," they may be thinking, "Well, that's for African Americans." It's for anybody who desires to understand the history of a people at
Yeah.
all, and to get to understand, because I think the need of love and understanding and solidarity and just gathering to the place where we want to understand one another, and me to understand you and you understand me. Even in our friendship, we've got to understand something about one another's history, and
Right.
we've got to understand that in the wholeness, not
Hmm.
just a finite piece of, and when I say finite, a small piece that we've extracted out of history, and cause that to be the thing that we talk about the most.
Mhm.
But can we go further than that together? Can we go, deeper than that together? Can we understand more about one another?
Yes.
Because I think when we begin to do that as a people, whether we be black or white or Hispanic or whatever we are, about one another, I
Yes.
think then that helps to, like you say, part the cloud so that we may see
Yeah.
one another for who we are as God sees us. You know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying? Because
Mhm.
we are more than that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That one, and this is the end, so I'm not going to get into that whole thing, but there's more than that for all history,
Yes. Yeah.
so we need to having that desire to say, hey, I've never been to the High Museum of, whatever the name that we were talking about the other day. I've never been to the history museum in the Washington D.C. I've never been to the one here in Atlanta. I may not be African American, but let
Right.
me go look. You know what I mean? Take that trip. Go look. Go experience one another. Speak to those that you know. Ask
Hmm.
them about their history.
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with how we can get to the place of love and understanding with one another if we seek to understand and seek to know and seek to learn.
That's true.
I think there's a blessing in that. So
There is.
it's my
There
time.
is.
Yeah.
That's a good take. That is
Yeah.
definitely a good take. Well, I this was a good topic. This is a good topic, and I hope that we hope that you will enjoy the show. We're glad to be back in 2022, and you know, take this time out. You know, we've got a few more days in Black History Month in February, and do exactly what Andretta said. You know, if you live in a town that has a African American museum, go visit it
Mhm.
and get to see and immerse yourself in learning. You know, this it's all about learning. Uh,
Mhm.
to know to see something from someone else's perspective
Absolutely.
is key to
Mhm.
getting to know a person and to getting along with a person and ultimately how to love a person.
Mhm.
So do those things if you can do that this month. That would I think it'll bless you, as this sister Guthrie has said. So any parting words, Andretta?
No, I don't have any more. I appreciate the discussion. It was a stretch for me because it really opened up my eyes. And it's not too late. It's not too late for that development for myself and for you or anybody. Not necessarily saying you, but any viewer who may catch the replay or whatever. It's never too late to grow and to learn and to fill in the gaps of your life. So this was a good discussion. It's opened up my eyes and given me some things to think about so that I can be better than I was and to connect further and deeper with that part of who I am. So, yeah.
Yeah. We had to take another trip back to DC so we can
Mhm.
actually, you know, ex- enjoy the museum totally. So, well, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next week. Actually, we have a guest coming on, so pay attention to Facebook and to Instagram for our guest that's coming on. And you all have a great one, Andrea. It was good seeing you, and